Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for attending Connect 2015. I'm Neil Padgett, President of the Garner Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of the Chamber, our Board of Directors, the Town of Garner, and all of our wonderful sponsors, we welcome you to the 6th Annual Connect Conference, addressing Garner's economic prospects. We have got a packed agenda today, so let's jump right in. This year's Chamber Board Chair is Dina McDonald. Dina is the owner of Alosi Renewal Spa. She is an important part of our business community. She's an important part of the Chamber, and Dina gives back to our community. Please welcome Dina McDonald.
Thank you, Neil. We've got an incredible conference lined up, and we're able to do this because of the support of our sponsors. We'd like to take a minute to acknowledge our event sponsors. The Town of Garner is our presenting sponsor today, and this wonderful venue, Amphisa's Jewelers, home of the Grand Marquis Ballroom. Community partners, Duke Energy, S&A Cherokee, and Wake Med. Bus tour sponsors, Rush Hour Karting and Avisboro Road Baptist Church. Lunch sponsor, Chick-fil-A. Reception and dinner sponsor, All-Star Waste Services. Audiovisual production sponsor, Capital Production Group. Session sponsor, Carolina Clipz Magazine. Break sponsor, Minchie's Frozen Yogurt. Coffee sponsor, Lorraine's Coffee House and Music. Dessert sponsor, Cheesecakes Plus. And a special thanks to Logan's Roadhouse, who is grilling our steaks this evening.
Here for all the sponsors.
I'd like to recognize our Chamber Board members, Chair-elect Mark Barabee with Duke Energy, Treasurer Buddy Gupton, Jones Insurance, Secretary Carol Sims, Fonville Morrissey Realty, Past Chair Tommy Sims, All-Star Waste, Amy White, Community of Hope, Douglas Ball, Ball Reynolds, Barry Driver, Capital Chrysler Jeep Dodge, Doris Hubner, F&D Hubner doing business as McDonald's, Linda Powell, Powell Realty, Tanya Hayslip, First Citizens Bank, Mary Lee with Brian Lee Funeral Home, Susie Phillips, International Minute Press, Jay Strickland, Wingswept, Magdi Saad, Saad Investment Group, Paula Anderson with Southern Cruise and Travel, Ronnie Thompson with TT&E Iron and Metal, Pandora Holloway, Angie Gay with Hamlin Roofing. But now it says the mayor. All right, well, I'm going to introduce the mayor next.
Okay, Mayor, don't take it.
You going to introduce me?
There you go. They know you, Mayor.
No. Normally at this time I'll tell a joke, but I'm not going to do it today. But I will ask Travis Tobin, if you will, Travis, bless the food and we'll return thanks. Okay, welcome to all of you. Thank you for sacrificing your time away from your work to be with us today. I would like to introduce the elected officials that are here, beginning with Senator Chad Barefoot, Wake County Commission Chair James West, Dr. West, Matt Calabria, County Commissioner, County Commissioner Sig Hutchison, and we had the former Raleigh Mayor Ms. York. Thank you for being here. On the Town Council in Garner, Kathy Behringer. Thank you, Kathy. Jackie Johns, Buck Kennedy, Ken Marshburn, and Grace Singleton. Y'all tell me when to quit. All right, it says thank you, Mayor, now, so that's somebody else. Anyway, thank you for being here. God bless you. Whoa. Okay, there's a video I'm supposed to introduce. It brings an update on the bond. So focus your eyes up here and pay attention. There'll be a pop quiz afterwards.
In March 2013, voters headed to the polls and said yes to making Garner an even greater place to be. They approved 4 bond referendums totaling more than $35.7 million.
We would like to think we function as a team, the elected body, the administration, and the citizens themselves. They recognize the needs that we have at the town, and their tax dollars are going to be used to promote these things and build these things with the bond money, so it's important that they signed on the way they did.
The 2.75-cent tax increase that will help pay for the bond program will improve streets and neighborhoods, help build a new indoor recreation center, construct new sidewalks, enhance parks, and build a new police station and town hall. First, the street and sidewalk improvement bonds, around $14.5 million. 73% of voters said yes to these bonds.
It will promote economic development. It will enhance quality of life. It will do a lot for the citizens.
Future plans include widening parts of US 70. This will allow better access to businesses and ease traffic backups. Other road improvements, including the one at Jessup Drive, aim to make the area safer for drivers and improve traffic flow. Bond dollars will also go toward making it easier to get downtown. Another main focus for these bonds is sidewalks and greenways.
We have a growing generation of citizens who like to exercise and promote physical fitness. Sidewalks are important there.
The second set of bonds are the Public Safety and Services Facilities bonds, backed by 75% of voters. This involves 2 big projects, a new town hall and new police station. The cost for the 2 projects will be $12 million. The goal is to enable town staff and police to work better and smarter for the citizens of Garner. The existing town hall is over 40 years old and no longer can accommodate staff needs.
I think it's very important for providing services for our citizens. We want to do the best that we can in that area. Our current facilities are outdated. They're 20, 30 years old in many instances. We just don't have adequate space to provide the services that we want to for our citizens.
The plan calls for tearing down current town hall buildings and replacing them with a new 2-story, 26,000 square foot municipal building facing 7th Avenue.
The new town hall will include some meeting space that can be used by community groups, that we could have outside groups come here and do training seminars. It gives us room for about probably 20, 25 years to grow our town staff. So it is, we began this project with the end in mind and what is we want to do in the long term.
The new town hall is set to open in the first part of 2017. The other major project, the new police station. Right now, the police department is spread out in 3 separate buildings, but that will soon change. The department will soon be under one roof at 912 7th Avenue, near Town Hall campus.
For the first time in several decades, we'll have a single facility that will serve as a rendezvous point, for our sworn and civilian staff to come together, to share ideas, and to work even more closely together than we have been able to in the past. And it's an opportunity to use the concept of synergy to combine the individual knowledge and skills of our staff to provide the best service possible to the Garner community through a team that is in fact greater than the sum of its parts.
The new police station should open in October, about a year after work began at the site. Next up, the Parks and Recreational bonds. 70% of the voters said yes to these. Projects totaling about $7.1 million will involve constructing or enhancing parks and recreation facilities and amenities. The money is paying for new restrooms, concession areas, dugouts, and fences at current ball fields at South Garner and Garner recreational parks. Funds have also built Garner's first public dog park at Garner Recreational Park, with another one set to open in Lake Benson Park. Money will also go to improving the Garner Performing Arts Center by paving a parking lot, adding more outdoor lighting, and improving the walkways. But it turns out the main project in this category was nearly 3 decades in the making.
In 1986, the town first voted to build a community center. It's now called Indoor Recreation Center, and that's the name it'll have going forward. But it's a project that has been kicked around here in town for quite some time. Different sites were considered and ultimately chose to be on Main and Montague.
So the Indoor Recreation Center will be a facility over 40,000 square feet. It will contain 3 high school-sized gymnasiums. We'll also have 3 multi-purpose rooms that we can use for camps, arts, fitness programs. The one thing that I think everyone is excited about in the Indoor Recreation Center is the indoor walking track. So on days like today, when it's 102 degrees outside, you can still get your exercise in, and that will be something that all age groups can use.
The bonds will not cover all the construction costs for the indoor recreation center. ConAgra contributed $2.5 million towards the project, and the town has also set aside special reserves for it. The Indoor Recreation Center, which is on track to open in summer 2017, promises to pump money back into Garner businesses.
Bringing in AAU basketball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, and how that benefits not only the community, but our business community as well, because that will be money coming into the Garner area through visitation, hotel stays, restaurant visits, shops at Target, Walmart. So everyone benefits as a result of our recreation programming coming out of the Indoor Recreation Center.
The fourth set of approved bonds, redevelopment bonds, will also help with aspects of building the Indoor Recreation Center, as well as buying parcels of land in furtherance of the historic downtown Garner plan. All told, the Garner Bond Program offers a comprehensive roadmap for moving our All-America city forward for decades to come.
Garner is growing and getting better, one project at a time, one day at a time.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dina, and thank you for that update on our Garner projects. Did we say Christine Kushner a while ago? We were recognizing elected officials. That's why, so she is chair of the Board of Education, so we appreciate all of you guys being here. So now that we've named you all, let's give our elected officials a big round of applause for everything you do and for being with us here today. So this is a conference about Garner. It's our 6th annual such conference. We partner with the town to bring topics and information that are vital to Garner's future. So I thank the town of Garner for this partnership that we have. And also thank you to the chamber staff who was running this event today. Terry Nielsen, Faye Gardner, Caitlin Norris, Rachel Chavez, and our 2 high school interns, Cassidy Sanders and Sarah Beth Thorpe. What a team they are. And also we thank the ambassadors who are helping us today, as well as our other volunteers. So let's thank all those volunteers out there who are helping us. So you have an agenda at your place, so you see that we have a couple breaks this afternoon. So if you do need the restrooms, they're to our right over here. There are beverages that will be in the back for the entire afternoon. Now, we ask that you silence your phones, but please do not turn them off because we want you guys tweeting this afternoon. So our it's hashtag Garner Connect. And if you need Wi-Fi access, there's your password. And the Wi-Fi network is Anfisa's 004. Okay, so we're going to kick the program off today with Mike Charbonneau. He leads all the communication efforts for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Mike has more than 15 years of communications experience, primarily in journalism. He's been a reporter, a photographer, and a multimedia producer for WRAL News. He's earned 2 regional Emmy Awards and has been nominated for a national Emmy. And he's been through quite a few headline news changes in his workplace the last week or two, including one change to our program today. So, Mike, come tell us about it.
Hey there, thank you for having me out here. Yeah, it has been an interesting couple of weeks at NCDOT. I don't know if anyone has seen any of the headlines or any news about us recently, but obviously part of the headlines is part of why I'm here today. I'm happy to be stepping in for Tony Tata, who was originally scheduled to be here as Secretary of Transportation. In some ways, I told Neil, I feel a little bit like a letdown here, although I'm glad to be here. I'm certainly not a retired brigadier general, not an author, not somebody who's led troops in combat, although I did stand in hurricanes and snowstorms as a reporter, and I did work in public relations for Wake County Public School System during some interesting times. So, but I'm really happy to be here, and I did want to tell you a little bit about, obviously, with over the last few years that I've been at DOT. I came in when Secretary Tata came on as the Transportation Secretary to head up communications, and Over the course of the last 2.5 years, a little more than 2.5 years with him as secretary, we've really done some tremendous things for the state and with the Department of Transportation. A lot of things focused on different ways to fund projects and move projects forward to make sure that we are creating more jobs and better connecting our communities, a number of things with improvements to customer service, including a lot of focus on the DMV and better ways to serve our customers online and those who have to wait in line in the office. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges and things we've been working on, but I did want to let everyone know right off the bat that as we've gone through some of these major milestones and achieved some major accomplishments over the last 2.5 years, the other person who you may not have always heard about as much in the news as Tony Tata was Nick Tennyson, who's now our transportation secretary. For those of you who have been in the Triangle for a long period of time, you might remember Nick in his role as the mayor of Durham for a few years, and then he was headed up, worked with the Home Builders Association in Durham and Orange County. So he's been around and involved in a lot of things. And he was always the right-hand man, the person who was at the center of all that we were doing through all those changes. And as we've had a transition in our secretary, we have not had a transition in our mission or the path that we're on. And Secretary Tennyson strongly believes in all of the things that we've done over the last 2.5 years and has said several times since being named just last week that he intends to continue on that, continue delivering the good things that we've been working on and continuing to innovate so that we have even more coming to the communities. So with that, I want to talk to you just a little bit about sort of where our focus has been at DOT and how it relates to some project-specific things here in the Garner area. I've got Joey Hopkins back here. Joey, you can put your hand up. He is, for those of you who don't know, Joey is our chief engineer for Division 5, of which Garner is a part. And so as I go through some of these things high level, if you have some project-specific questions that I can't answer for you, Joey's here to help me with some of those, and we'll be around to talk a little bit afterwards if anyone needs to. So if we can move to the first slide, I want to talk a little bit about sort of the problem statement we came into with NCDOT. And under Governor McCrory's administration, he wanted to focus a lot on better ways to fund transportation, better ways to move projects forward. And so the challenge that North Carolina is facing and that many DOTs across the nation are facing right now is what we call this infrastructure gap. We have traditional revenue sources for transportation, which are motor fuels tax, DMV fees, and highway use tax. They've either been flatlining or declining over the years, while, as you all know, the need has been greatly increasing with the number of people and businesses that have continued to relocate to the Triangle area and to North Carolina. And so we have a lot of challenges in trying to figure out how we're going to fund transportation moving forward, not only keep up and stay ahead of the growth that we know is here and continuing to come, but how we maintain our infrastructure system, keep our roads and bridges safe, and keep commerce running, not only on our roads, but also on our rail lines, through our ports, through our airfields, a number of things. And so one of the first things that we did under this administration was worked on our funding formula. A new law passed in 2013 changed the way that we fund projects in North Carolina. It took the politics out of transportation planning and really put it through a data-driven process that more efficiently uses the dollars that we did have in the account. And so you may have heard it referred to as the strategic mobility formula created under this law. The next 10-year plan for Garner and all of North Carolina that's moving forward with projects is all based on this formula. All these projects were submitted over the last couple of years, went through a scoring process, had to meet certain criteria based on things like safety and congestion relief and economic competitiveness. And so our next 10-year plan moves forward with this formula, using the same amount of money we had currently, and then just switching the formula, we've been able to be significantly more efficient, and we'll actually be able to do about 300 more projects and create about 126,000 more jobs than we would have been able to had we left the formula in place. So that was a good start, but again, not enough to address all that we need to do. So the next focus, and if we can jump to the next slide, some of you may have heard about the 25-year vision for North Carolina, transportation vision, and I've got a copy up here. I brought a small stack of these that are sitting out front if anyone wants to take one home. If we run out and you want to send us an email, contact us. You can send me an email directly. It's mcharbonneau@ncdot.gov, and we'll be happy to get you one of these. You can also go to NCDOT's website, scroll to the bottom and click on 25-year vision, and you can get the printable version, or you can just look at it online. But the 25-year vision does a couple of things. It creates a roadmap for the next 25 years in our state. Looks at 22 high-level solutions from the coast, eastern North Carolina, the Piedmont area, and the mountains. Does not necessarily name specific projects, although there are some projects that were already in the works that kind of tie into this. But it's about bigger picture solutions, what we need for our growing state and to stay competitive. In the triangle, it includes things like looking at both connections from a standpoint of road improvements to make sure we're staying connected, to looking at the future of transit in the area, whether that's bus transit, rail transit, a combination. And so it really identifies sort of the challenges in the region, some things that we already have in place, and some additional things that we need to do as a state if we're going to be able to maintain and keep up with the growth. The other thing that it does is, in addition to laying out some specific solutions, it talks about a path forward to be able to fund these. Some of the things that we've already done and some of the things that are in the works right now. I mentioned the new funding formula. It was important to first kind of be more efficient with dollars, have a roadmap moving forward. And then some other things that are identified in the governor's 25-year vision are things like taking advantage of historically low interest rates for new bond strategies. You talked a lot about the bonds that have happened here that are making improvements in the Garner community. And right now, you've probably read the governor and team are out there trying to get to the ballot next year a bond proposal that will allow citizens to come out and decide if they want to invest additional monies in transportation. It's not a silver bullet to fix all. It's another method to continue to stretch our dollars a little bit farther. So you have the new formula, you would have bonds to help with the gap a little bit further, and then there's other things like public-private partnerships. We already have several of these going on at the North Carolina ports and some other places, as well as the first road project in the state to be a P3 project is out in the Charlotte-Meck area, the new I-77 Express Lanes project. But this is an important strategy moving forward for North Carolina and other states. Again, all P3s is not the answer, but a combination of existing funds, new ways of funding, and also tapping into our private partners to be able to make the dollars go a little bit further. And then the final piece that's outlined in those funding strategies is looking at funding reform. Because in addition to all of these things, we do need to look at those revenue sources that we talked about, and if they're flatlining or declining, how do we move forward to fund transportation in a way that's more sustainable? And so there's a number of conversations already going on in the General Assembly right now about both the bond packages as well as some other transportation funding reform. It's an important issue to our department and to our secretary that's going to continue on as we move forward over the next 2 years, 5 years, and beyond into the next couple of decades for the region. So that's kind of where we are from the big picture. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about some projects specific to Garner that I know have a lot of interest here. If we can go to the next slide. And it's sideways, so I guess you have to kind of turn your head to see this, or I'll have to pop this up, but I'm sure there's not a person in this room that hasn't already seen this map once or twice in your life. This would be the complete 540 map. I know this is a project for a long, long time in the Garner area that has not only been needed and wanted, but has also raised a number of heightened concerns and conversations over the years. When I was still a reporter working for WRAL, I very early on covered a number of stories as certain sections of 540 were completed, and the plan was there to complete 540, and then, as you all know, the plan was put on hold as we had to go back and do a number of things from an environmental study perspective under the law. And so it's important to know that Complete 540 remains a top priority project for NCDOT, and Complete 540 being just that, completing the entire loop. We want to get this done as soon as possible. We know that the folks in Garner and all of Wake County want this done as soon as possible, and our team has really been moving as quickly as they can to get through this process. It's also a priority project for a number of other groups in the region, and so we wanted to kind of update you and for some, you may be hearing this for the first time. I think a lot of folks have kind of been following the timeline, but I did want to update you to tell you that Currently, we are scheduled to still move forward for construction beginning in 2018 on 540 from the NC 55 bypass to US 401, and then the section from NC 540 from 401 to I-40 is scheduled to begin construction in 2022. Our teams that were tasked with going back out and doing a new environmental impact statement have been working hard over the years. As you know, they came back to the community just in the last year or so to do a number of follow-up conversations and outreach events, collecting information that's been an important part of this process. They have completed all the field work. They're nearly completed with all the technical studies, and our team is expecting to have the environmental impact statement, the draft of that, back in just the next couple of weeks. And so once we get that back, the timeline will be a few weeks from now we get that updated environmental impact statement, and then we go through this review period where we have to hold public hearings again. Some people have asked us, hey, I've already given some comments before in the past. I've submitted them in a number of ways. Why do we have to go back and collect more input? Well, the important thing in this process is that as required by law, and because we want to make sure we're doing it the right way, we need to make sure that as we go through the process that there's no question that we have dotted every I, crossed every T, and that when we move forward with the recommendation and begin construction, that we're not going to run into any other situations of having to delay that. And so as we come back for more public hearings early in the fall, this will lead us to the process of gathering the rest of what the DOT team needs to be able to select the preferred alternative route for the project this fall, and then we expect to have the final approval of the environmental impact statement by the spring of 2016. So with that in place, I won't go through the whole timeline. You can see it on the Complete 540 website, but once we reach those milestones, then it's completing the process of the financial feasibility, requiring right-of-way, and ultimately starting that construction right now scheduled to be in the spring of 2018. So again, I'll save some room for questions, and Joey will help me if there's anything I can answer beyond that. But we do want to encourage people. We're going to be working with all of you to get the word out about the next round of public hearings. We really do need that feedback. It really is an important part of the process. It's the best way for us to collect that information, and the more specific the information, the better. We know we've heard from a number of people who don't want certain routes, which is helpful to know, and that's obviously part of the process. Having some recommendations for preferred routes is also very helpful to our team as they collect that data to move forward. So we'll stay engaged. Okay, so FORTIFY. How many people in this room have heard of the FORTIFY project? Okay, good. So the word's getting out. So for those of you who have heard about it, I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit quickly, but in the next slide, just to give you a real quick synopsis of what it is. We are rebuilding the entire 11.5-mile stretch that goes, starting with 440 portion, which has been completed or nearly completed, going out to 40, which goes all the way out to the split. 11.5 miles of that beltline section that needs to be completely rebuilt. Some people have talked about this being a repaving job. That's not the case. The reason this is so significant and taking so long is the chemical reaction that's happening under the pavement is causing the road to crumble from underneath. Continuing to patch and pave isn't going to do it. So our crews with our contractors have been digging up the road and will continue to do so until they get the entire road dug, rebuilt from scratch. Progress has been going well so far. As I said, the 440 portion has been completed, and now we're moving on to the next phase that will have a greater impact to the area. So if we can pop to the next slide. This map, if it's hard to see on here, fortifync.com, or you can follow us, those of you who are Twitter followers in the room, follow us at FortifyNC. We're constantly putting out new information to try to share updates on the projects as well as what things people can do to help mitigate their impact. But if you look at the map there, the top corner, the 440 portion, now that it's done, we're working on that 40 portion. 40 is the most heavily traveled portion of the project zone. About 100,000 to 120,000 cars a day come through the work zone. We have 3 lanes that will be open through the entire life of the project in both directions. When we did 440, it was already 3 lanes, so it was just a matter of shifting traffic and then shifting them back. We are now on the 40 portion where, in addition to shifting, there are sections where we're reducing 4 lanes down to 3 And beginning tonight, in some sections out towards Lake Wheeler, as we come westbound on 40, we'll see the beginnings of 5 lanes coming down to 3 in that direction. And so, as you've heard us talk about for the last 2.5 years, we've worked with partners, we've talked about it, we've gone on and talked with our local media, and I think a lot of people might be saying, well, this thing wasn't so bad. We've been talking about Fortify, I haven't seen it. We anticipate that people will really start to get a sense of the actual impact we've been referencing for the last couple of years as we continue to reduce those lanes and shift those lanes on the 40 portion. All right, next slide. So we need everyone's help. We've been out talking to the public for several years and trying to get 30,000 cars off of that peak section of the roadway during the heavy commute times in the morning and the afternoon. Sounds like a large task to get 30,000 cars off the road. We've tried to partner with a number of groups and offer some solutions to help do that. So if we can jump to the next slide real quickly. We've been out talking with employers, businesses, a number of you. I know we've talked with different members in this room over the last several years about things like alternate schedules where possible, alternate work locations where possible, the use of more public transportation. Not all of these options are available for everyone, and not everyone is going to have their business located directly in the work zone or in an area where people are going to have to pass through the work zone. What we've tried to do is work with everyone to come up with a menu of options, to have people look at considering occasionally working somewhere else. If you have a meeting you're scheduling or a conference, either looking at the times that that's starting or ending to help shift when people are coming into the downtown Raleigh area where a lot of that greater impact comes through. We've done a number of things to invest in public transit for this project. As part of DOT's focus, we invested nearly $12 million with Go Triangle to create a number of outreach events as well as some new express bus routes and some new park and ride options. This is very important to us because it gives people another option to not have to drive their car in or through the impacted work zone or even near the impacted work zone. But it's also important for this region as we talk about, and we'll have a much more longer conversation obviously this afternoon about transit for the region. And as we've worked with RTA and a number of our business partners through this project, we've really talked about this in terms of being a good sort of future scope test run for transit in the Triangle, really getting a snapshot for people of one, what the impact to traffic could look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years, but also really getting people who may not have before to explore the options of transit, both from an environmental standpoint, from a traffic impact standpoint, how important this can be to the region and how viable an option public transportation can be. So Go Triangle's been working hard with us and others to try to create new opportunities, educate people about the option of public transportation, and as we get through this project, which will wrap up at the end of 2016, we want to continue on that focus and really working with our transit partners and RTA and a number of chambers, including yours, to really take a look at what the future needs are for the region. And as we've identified in the 25-year vision and some other places where transit is a viable option and a necessary option, really figuring out how we can partner together to get that message out and to find some options for that moving forward. Okay, so one last Fortify slide. Again, fortifync.com, because you can't probably see it too well from where you're sitting here, but the two big messages we've been sharing with people are, number one, prepare ahead, and number two, know before you go. Our engineers have said that on a typical day, once the full project is in its 3-lane pattern in both directions, it could be an extra half hour for people commuting in the morning and the afternoon if they have to come in or around the project work zone. On days when there's rain or a breakdown or an accident, those of you who travel 40 and 440 know it doesn't take much today to have traffic slow down quite a bit in that area. When we're in a full construction zone in both directions with these concrete barriers on both sides, it's going to have a greater impact. And so we want people to know in advance that it's a possibility so they can prepare as much as possible. We also want to make sure we're constantly giving updated information, real-time information, so that if you get up in the morning, we want you to have a place to go by following us on Twitter or going to our website, tuning into your local media, and seeing those real-time traffic updates. Is there an accident now that could potentially add an hour to your trip one morning? Is it pouring at 7 o'clock in the morning, and could we be looking at a 45-minute change to your commute? Or for those of you who have to ship goods through that area. And so we're going to have real-time traffic updates both on the website and through Twitter throughout the project. If there's an incident, that map you see up there will be color-coded and changed to red, letting people know that we have a situation going on. You'll see our DOT employees out in the local media, talking with the business folks, getting the message out online, doing all we can to communicate when there's an incident and the potential impact. The FORTIFY project is so important. It's so important to have this as a collaborative project with the whole community. One thing we wanted to make sure in all of this is that we wanted people to know that the Triangle is open for business throughout the life of this project. We wanted people to have ways to minimize the impact and be able to move forward and really connect the community. The way that the business community has embraced this FORTIFY brand and helped us get the message out so far has been tremendous. We want to make sure we're doing the right things to continue to message that for all of you so that people, even in the height of this project, are not afraid to come through downtown Raleigh or to downtown Raleigh to do business or come for a conference or come for a meeting. So we have a number of ideas online. We've had great partnerships with chambers to this point who have given us feedback that has helped us adapt some of this, and we want to continue that. So if you have thoughts or ideas walking away from today, feel free to email me, send us a message. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to come out and talk with you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, Sharb. I heard someone at his office call him that. So, Mike, can I call you Sharb? Absolutely. Thank you, Sharb. And now to build on Mike's message, we're going to move to Wake County Transit. So, Wake County Transit panelists, if you guys would make yourself way up to the front here. So, Wake County Transit, what are the plans? What is the planning process? And what's in it for Garner? So, leading the panel today is Garner's friend, Deborah Ross. So Deborah is Triangle Transit's General Counsel. She served 5 terms with the General Assembly, and she was our representative. She's a graduate of Brown University and UNC Chapel Hill Law School. She's a senior lecturing fellow at Duke Law School, and we are honored to have Deborah leading our session today. Thank you, Deborah.
Well, thank you, Neil. It's always fun to be back in Garner. I love Garner. I love cheering for Scotty McCreary. Anyway, it's fun being back. But I'm just the MC today. These 4 fine gentlemen will be sharing some wisdom with you and answering some questions. And what I'm going to do is introduce each of them to you and then let each of them take a few minutes to share with you either what their mission is or their perspective on transit, and then we'll get into the questions and answers. So the first one, who you probably have seen before, but he's new to this area, is our county manager, Jim Hartman. And he was sworn in as Wake County manager in 2014. He previously served as the manager of Seminole County, Florida, and the manager of Alexandria, Virginia. So he brings a lot of wisdom from those 2 places. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Public Administration and a Master's of Public Administration from the University of Central Florida. After that, we have Joe Milazzo, and I'm sure that he is a friend of Garner and that you've seen around for a while. He served as the executive director of the Regional Transportation Alliance Business Coalition since 2002. Under his leadership, the RTA has spearheaded a range of successful transportation improvements across the region that include accelerated construction of the Triangle Expressway, North Carolina's largest ever highway project, and the state's first toll roads. We just talked about tolls a little bit. He has a master's in business management and civil engineering from NC State and is a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina. After Joe, we have Chris Lucasina. And Chris is the new head of CAMPO, which is the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. He previously served as the director of the Jacksonville Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization and the assistant planning director for the Upper Coastal Plains COG, working with 2 rural planning organizations on transportation planning for 8 counties. Other experiences include development of a long-range transportation plan, economic retention plans, multimodal planning, open space studies, hazard mitigation plans, tip development, project prioritization, air quality conformity, and chief of staff to the technical and political boards. So we are so lucky to have all of his experience and energy at the head of Campo. And the final person I'm introducing is John Talmadge, who I get to work with every day and learn so much from. He guides teams that plan Go Triangle and Go Durham bus services and manages bus stops and customer information resources. He plays a leading role in the development of fare and service policies. He has a BA in political science in French and international relations, very fancy, from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and joined Go Triangle in 1997 with a Master's of City and Regional Planning from UNC Chapel Hill. He's one of the longest-serving Go Triangle employees. And with that, we're going to start with our county manager, Jim Hartman, and he's going to share some reflections before we get into questions and answers, and then we'll move along down the line.
Very good. Thank you, Deborah. If I can pull up a couple of my slides. There. That's the first one, and this is kind of the theme from last August. And we announced then that Wake County hit 1 million population. That's a real significant mark. It also means a lot of things to this community because we're growing by about 63 new residents per day. 21 from a natural increase. This is births minus the deaths. That's a kindergarten class every day. Actually, our kindergarten classes might be a little bit larger than that due to the population growth and the number of classrooms that we have available. But you get the point. That's a lot. And 42 people per day moving into our community, 11 of those coming from international places. About 22 from other states and 9 from elsewhere in North Carolina. Those are striking numbers. 52% of those that are moving in are relocating to Raleigh and Cary. But I've got another map that you'll see at some point in time, but it shows that distribution going across the county to the west and to the east as well. So what do we expect? We expect about 250,000 new residents each decade, and we should hit a population of 2 million in 2054, less than 40 years from now. How you feeling right now? You know, when we think about these things in these terms, because probably 40 years ago you weren't thinking about how we're going to hit 1 million population, it's here today. So how we plan for that next 1 million is going to be critical. And part of what we're talking about today has a sense of urgency because we need to plan for that now. This map reflects, it's a heat map, and it reflects building permits issued throughout the county over the last 18 months. And so you can see where it's red means a little bit more intensity in those building permits. There's both commercial and residential, but you can see the growth within the county borders are everywhere. And this does not include those subdivisions that have been planned, platted, but not yet started. So it's coming. If you read the paper today and you looked about rents and so forth, it's coming. The people are coming. We've got to prepare. Next slide, please. This is the 2010 congestion map. I want to stay on this for just a second. So you can see different colored lines. The green ones mean go. That means those roads are in pretty good shape in 2010. Yellow means they're getting a little bit more congested, and red means really congested. And let's go to the next one. That's 2040. So if we don't do something, and you just heard about some of the road projects that will relieve some of that, we've got to have other methods of transportation. And we've got to get about that business now. So we're here to talk today about some of those other transit opportunities. What I've got up on the slide, and this is my last one, is this is a group of our partners. And so about a year ago, we started designing a process that would be very, very inclusive of the community, and we would gather up with all our major transit providers and the planning organizations and create a collaborative effort in order to help guide us through a year's worth of planning. And we're in that year worth of planning now. So we'll talk more about some of these partnerships going forward, but this is really important because we've got everybody at the table. There is a sense of urgency here. We're going to have an opportunity that if we want to vote for more transit in this community, it's got to be done next year. So we got to get going on this. Thanks.
Thanks. Joe?
Sure. I've got some slides as well. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I work for an organization called the Regional Transportation Alliance, which is a business coalition here in the Triangle. Next slide. And this slide just talks about who we are as an organization and what we do. And you can see very basically, advancing transportation solutions is what we're about. Our goal, we don't own the roads, we don't own the transit systems, we don't want to do so, but as a regional business coalition, a business leadership group, it's vital, it's imperative that the transportation system works for us both now, as our county manager just said, as we grow. Go to the next slide. RTA is major investors across the market. You know many of these companies. You are probably customers of many of them. Some of you may work at those companies. Those are some of our largest investors. Go to the next slide as well. And then these slides, and then next slide, please. And then these companies together, along with our regional partners, which you'll see in a moment, provide the RTA leadership team. These are the companies that day in, day out are making sure that transportation is a priority for each of the members of not just their organizations, but this broader community. Keep going. You can see again some of the same folks who are partnering from the transit plan element are also members of ours. Okay. And RTA also represents 23 member chambers of commerce in 10 counties in central and eastern North Carolina. Garner really being one of them. In fact, every chamber of commerce in Wake County is part of the RTA, along with Durham, Orange counties, and many other counties as well. Okay. This slide here and the one afterward just talks a little bit about some of the basic things that we focus on that we have dealt with for a long period of time as an organization. The one message I would speak to you about, and it really heightens the sense of urgency that Jim just mentioned. You should never be amazed at how long transportation projects take. You should instead be amazed that any of them ever get done to begin with. After having worked for the business community with partners just like these and many others, it is absolutely phenomenal that some projects ever get done. The young lady who asked the question about the turnpike earlier, which I thought was great, and that was exactly our reaction to it. I'll tell you straight up. That was when we first heard about getting the western piece of 540 over by Cary in that area and getting that accelerated. We felt the exact same way. Part of us still do. I remember when Sherman and I worked for WRL, and I remember at the time that your organization did a poll, and you found out that only 7% of the people that you surveyed, the WRL survey, said they wanted 540 to be accelerated as a toll road. And I wanted to meet these 7% because they were some of the nicest people I had ever met in my life. I'd love to be able to do that. Who were these altruistic 7%? The number should have been 0. That's the number of us that would truly want that to be the way we do it, right? Given the choice of having all 100 counties help pay for it, or having us write 100% of the check right away, toll wouldn't be the way you'd start with. But toll was the best way based on the alternatives available, which for many of us looked like not building that road at all. And that's how we came to the conclusion. And I will tell you this, I'm not asking to agree with it, but at least to understand how we got there. Here's some of the successes we looked at. Deborah mentioned about, again, 540. My eyes aren't too good to be able to see that freshman one, so I'll do it this way. The 70 freeway conversion between Raleigh and Durham. People don't realize by Briar Creek Parkway, within 10 years, you're going to start seeing some of those stoplights that we spent more time than we'd like to will be bridges, which will be good. I-495, you've seen the signs in eastern Wake County, Raleigh's newest interstate, the Wake County's newest interstate. The Air Service Advancement Project. and the bus on shoulder system, which is really a collaborative process with North Carolina DOT and Go Try. Show the next slide. So you've heard a lot about each of the priorities. Mike Sharman did an outstanding job along with Joey Hopkins, good colleagues and good friends about the projects. I'll simply say this, and Neil, where's Neil at? Right. Neil, what's the 11 words we say about complete 540?
We got to keep 540. We got to find a way to keep 540 moving forward.
That's perfect. All 11 words right there. And that's the answer. You notice what color route he mentioned? I didn't say it either, right? But the answer is we got to find a way to keep 540 moving forward. We know we've got to do that. It's our top freeway priority is getting that thing moving across the entire market. So that's the biggest priority. And the county and DOT and many partners are working together on that, along with our Metropolitan Planning Organization you're going to hear from moments from now. Next one. FORTIFY. So far, this has been pretty good. It's only been about 4 to 5 minutes of delay, which has been good. On 440, it's all done. That part is over with. My sense of it is I live in a very optimistic, it's a great day in Raleigh and Wake County in the triangle mode, so we're hoping 30-minute delays they're talking about don't happen. I do think whenever there's a wreck, it's going to be a tremendously character-building experience for each and every one of us as we get on and understand. So, you all have this, I have it too. I encourage you to get on your smartphone right before, not on the freeway, but right before you get on the freeway and take a look-see and make sure that you have the best shot at it. It's not foolproof. I was late for an event, actually just missed it entirely. I checked right before I left the office. My office is 5 minutes from Interstate 40, and in that amount of time there was a wreck and it just completely went south. So it's not foolproof, but it'll solve it most of the time. Last one here, this is in your packet, synchronized streets. This is about as good of a concept as we have seen the business community in some time. We didn't think of it in terms of a project concept. We have worked with DOT in terms of the naming of it because we think it's a great way of describing what this can be. This is the name the DOT is using in all 100 counties of North Carolina now. And if you pull that in your packet out, you will see, just read the first line together. You say, what is it? It provides for reduced delay and simultaneous coordination of both Main Street travel directions at all times of day. That's in that very first paragraph. That's the key piece of that. This exists in Chapel Hill on 15501. This exists in Leland on US 17 in Brunswick County. It exists on a portion of 55 in Holly Springs, and it could exist in portions around here in the rest of the county. This is a good way of moving travel flow. No solution comes without trade-offs, but this one optimizes them about as best as you're going to see. Okay. Mention air service. I'll just mention it right now. Air service is important to us. It's our connection to the world, and we as an organization are particularly focused on getting a second transcontinental flight to combine with the London Heathrow flight we have, and that's probably all I'll say right now on that. All right. And then transit, you've heard a lot of. These are all the slides I'm going to show on transit. It's literally just that one slide. The key message I want to leave you with from a transit conversation is, actually go back to the previous one there. This one here in terms of the Wake Transit Plan. You have all of us across the county have 4 options we're looking at, but they're really example scenarios. Okay, I want to make sure that's real clear. They're example scenarios. To help emphasize that, when we give this presentation to the business community, like today, we have numbered those from 1 to 36 like a checkerboard. Because really what you have in front of you are scenarios 8, 11, 26, and 29, based on trading off 2 different things, elements of rail versus bus rapid transit, and whether you want to focus the buses all in the most productive quarters or across the county. What's the right answer? There isn't one. There isn't one. There's no perfect answer there. But there is going to be a right one for this county, this growing county, and our objective is to figure out which one it is. But that's the key message from this, is there are 8 example scenarios. So if you're saying to yourself, I wish there were more rail, or I wish there were less rail, or I wish there were commuter rail, or I wish there were hovercraft, maybe not hovercraft, but whatever it is, these are scenarios, they're options, and this is the time for feedback, okay? And the next slide talks about how our business community perspective on it. We're going to offer perspective, we're going to be supportive of the referendum, and we're going to try to continue to lead on transit and transportation options. And so that's what you'll see. That's from our action plan. Okay. That's good.
Okay, thank you, Joe. We're going to move on to Chris Lucasina. For those of you who don't know anything about Campo, hopefully he'll give you a little overview.
That's my first bullet point here is, how many of you have heard of Campo before? Wow, all right, wow, this is going to be a lot easier then. Campo, again, stands for the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. We're one of about 400 MPOs across the country, charged with coordinating and providing for regional transportation planning solutions in basically every major metro area around the country. Here at Campo, we include all of the jurisdictions in Wake County, as well as about half of Johnston, down almost to the river in Harnett County, and then up to the Tar River in Franklin County, and the southern portions of Granville County. So 28 member entities make up Campo, as well as the state and our federal partners. And Mayor Williams is actually our immediate past chair of our executive board, serving for two years. His term ended in January. So Garner is very familiar with what Campo is and what we do. Our primary purpose is to develop and maintain a long-range transportation plan for our region to make sure that Garner and Raleigh don't build roads that do this, they build roads that do this, you know. And also to ensure that our priorities are known and hopefully implemented by the state and the federal funding sources that are out there. As Jim had mentioned, we're going to see phenomenal growth over the next 20 to 30 years. Our current long-range plan looks out to 2040. We've started development on our next plan that will go out to 2045. But from a regional perspective, we're looking at basically another million people to just about 2 million people in that 5-county or parts of 5-county area, with another 300,000 jobs in that region. So huge growth, not just on the housing side, but also on the employment side. A lot of that will be folks coming into Wake County from outside of Wake County. And as you saw from what we have called the tomato maps, those red, yellow, green maps that Jim showed, widening roads will not be enough in and of it by itself as a solution to all the congestion that we're looking at over the next 30 years. And so that's one of the big reasons we're here today, is to talk about other alternatives. In particular, I think we're talking about transit today. Our friends from the State Department of Transportation talked about STI, Strategic Transportation, and comparing that to what many of you have probably heard about in the past called the equity formula. How many of you have heard about that? Remember hearing about that? Over the years, that was created, I believe, in 1989. Very good idea back then, but over the years it became to be known as equally inequitable. No one felt like they were getting their fair share of what they needed to meet their needs. And so when STI came about a few years ago, and we began to use that for project prioritization across the state, our region has done very well. We went from, on average, about 6 or 7 projects every 2-year program that was developed to the first program, Transportation Improvement Program, created under STI, over 30 projects. So we saw a huge increase that really spoke to the latent demand we had for transportation improvements to meet the growth we had already had, let alone the growth that we're going to be seeing. The other thing I would say at the beginning of this, and we'll probably touch on it when we get into the question and answer, is the discussion on transit. When we start talking about any potential regional sales tax revenue, it's important to realize that what we're doing is something that hasn't really been done very much in the state. It's creating a new funding source for our transportation needs. The last major one, again, was when they created the equity formula in the late 80s, a modification to that with STI, but now this is really our region's opportunity to look at creating something that will go beyond just a first list of projects and go for decades beyond that into what could be follow-on projects as well.
Thank you, Chris. John, tell us a little bit about what Go Triangle does.
Thank you, Deborah. Go Triangle, formerly Triangle Transit, was created in 1989 by the General Assembly when leaders in the Triangle, including Smedes York, saw the need to have a region-wide public transportation system to match the growing travel demands that were becoming more regional as Garner, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Cary were growing back at that time. They had the foresight to see that in addition to the roadway network, the street network, we needed to have a complementary public transportation network. And so our organization was created to be a provider of public transportation along with the municipal systems, as well as a planner of regional public transportation, particularly high-capacity public transportation. You might think of them as rail systems or bus rapid transit systems in other parts of the country. We're governed by a 13-member board. The 10 voting members are made up, 5 are from Wake County, 2 appointed by the county itself, 2 from the city of Raleigh and 1 from the town of Cary, 3 from Durham County and 2 from Orange County, and then we have 3 ex officio board members from the North Carolina Board of Transportation. And they provide us strategic direction as we move forward. Our general manager is Jeff Mann. He is brand new to the organization. David King was our prior general manager and retired recently. And Jeff provides us day-to-day direction as we work on the region's public transportation priorities. So I mentioned that we are a provider of public transportation, so we provide regional bus services. You see that brand changing from Triangle Transit to Go Triangle. It's already started and is happening over the next year or so. It includes bus routes that are from Garner into downtown Raleigh, and it's delivered in a partnership. So we operate some directly, and where it makes financial sense, we contract with the city of Raleigh for them to operate. We do the same thing with the town of Cary and the city of Durham and town of Chapel Hill. So we work as a system. The regional branding that turned us into Go Triangle and Raleigh into Go Raleigh, Durham into Go Durham, and soon Cary into Go Cary is trying to catch up to the way that we've been operating as a common system. We're focused on the customers, and we've been doing a number of changes over time to make sure that we're working together. We do that with our fare technologies, so you can buy a pass on one system and it can work on the other systems. We do it with a call center that we staff, one for all the agencies in the region. We do it with customer information technologies, so you can go on your smartphone and look and see how many minutes until your bus is coming, and you can do it for any agency in one app. And so this next step in Wake Transit is just the next iteration of how we all come together with the partners to look for how we both catch up to the growth that's happened and look forward and make sure that we're planning for the growth that's coming. We're not just looking at what's happening in Wake County because, as I mentioned, the travel is regional, and as you know, the travel is regional. So we're also looking at what are those connections to Durham and Orange County, what are the connections to Johnston County, as we worked with NCDOT to provide services to address the FORTIFY commute, the options that Mike Charbonneau was mentioning. We've got 2 new routes starting in Johnston County, one in Clayton, one off of NC 42, to bring people in from there because it's part of our larger region and the way that people travel throughout it. Transit use is growing in our region. Over the last 10 years, for Go Triangle, the ridership has more than doubled. We provide 1.8 million rides per year now. The city of Raleigh provides almost 6 million. City of Durham provides about a little bit more than 6 million as well. So there are people using it today. For a lot of people, it is the service of, it's their only option, and it provides them access to job opportunities, provides them access to educational opportunities, and we're looking to provide a better level of service for those members of our community, and also to provide a higher quality service that's going to attract a broader cross-section of the community. And that's what we're here to work with all the municipalities, the regional agencies, the business community to identify those needs and match services and systems to meet them.
Okay. Well, thank you all of you for your introductory remarks. We have about 20 minutes left, and I have 7 questions. So I'm going to ask you to keep your answers quick, and maybe we'll even end up with a little time for some answers from the audience. I have 3 questions that are for all of you, but you don't all have to answer them. So I would like the veterans here to take a crack at the first one, which is that Wake County has done transit planning before, and it hasn't yielded an overall plan and services that have been delivered. And so tell us what's different about this process and why we think it will be successful. So do you want to start, Mr. Manager?
I can start real quickly, and I think I showed the one slide of the funding partners for the process, and I think that's really important. As I look back over the last 15 years and the number of plans that didn't really make it to the final conclusion, I said, well, let's not replicate that. Let's do something different. And so we set out to do something a little bit different. And that means create a true collaborative and then involve a lot of stakeholders in the process. And so I think one of the things that we're doing is taking a little bit of time in order to study the various alternatives, get well educated on the transportation options that are ahead of us, because as we understand them, we may make better decisions about that. So we've included a lot of people to date. We've had over 140 community meetings just in the past 4 or 5 months. We expect to do a lot more of those. We've got over 85,000 social media outlets, whatever we want to call them, and so all that will continue. So my request for all of you, if you haven't plugged into that, go to waketransit.com, because all the reports, everything is out there for you. There's a survey out there for you. Get informed so that when we need you to vote on something, you're there and you can vote your heart.
And remember that waketransit.com does have survey information where you can register your preferences. Does anybody else want to pipe in about how this is different than in the past?
I can just do one real quick. The slide I showed, the different example scenarios, the fact that you're looking and deciding different options. I mean, we now have multiple options to consider as a community. Each one of us will like different pieces of it, but the fact we have options to choose from is important. And as the manager said, it's time to begin to move forward and starting to make that selection. So that's another thing.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
I would just add, I think this go-around has been a much more integrated approach than maybe previous efforts, rather than looking at specifically rail improvements or bus improvements out through 30 years and whether or not a bus is going to turn right or left on Main Street. Taking a step back and saying, let's try and look at the system approach, but take the first bite, what's phase 1, and let's start there, but have the pieces in place to look at phase 2 through, X down the road.
Okay.
I think that the one other point that I'll add is the really upfront role that Wake County had, the leadership role that Wake County staff and manager Jim Hartman has been taking in driving this. Rather than being perhaps a bit in the background and waiting to see what was coming out of it, they are there leading us along the way.
Okay. Well, I'll turn back to our county manager, and you heard his background, and that means that he's had some experience with rail and bus rapid transit in Alexandria, Virginia, and Central Florida, because those places have some of the kinds of things that we don't have and we're considering. And I wanted to ask you, have there been any lessons learned from those experiences?
You bet. And a few scars along the way as well. I'll just really briefly mention a couple things. Alexandria, Virginia. How many of you have been to Alexandria? Okay, most of you. Inside the Beltway, across the river from Washington, D.C., one of the most overstimulated cities in the country. And I can say that. Also one of the most densely populated. On average, 10,000 people per square mile. But if you take out the more suburban areas within the 14 square miles, we've got some really, really highly densely populated areas. And so how you move people is critical. We had every form of transportation if we also pull in the Ronald Reagan Airport. But one of the programs that we did is we put bus rapid transit in a dedicated corridor down the middle of Route 1, which went from Alexandria to Crystal City. Okay, many of you have maybe traveled that corridor, super congested, super controversial, dedicating 2 lanes to buses that will follow in those lanes and move people. It is up and running, but I'll tell you, it took a long time. It took a lot of political will to do that. It took other people's money, Fed money and state money, but it is in place today, and now they're growing their riderships. Shift forward to Seminole County, Florida. A year ago, May, Sunrail started through Central Florida. This is a commuter rail line. Ultimate length of the line will be about 61 miles. Went through my county and Seminole County, had 4 stops there, is funded by a number of different agencies, but the state really took ownership there by getting the trackage rights and double tracking nearly the entire route, getting really good vehicles to run it, and on opening day, they were more successful than they ever thought. So if you want to see something, just Google Sunrail in Central Florida or the BRT in Alexandria, and this will give you some visions about things that could be happening here in the future, because it's all of these types of transit options that we have to consider.
Just one follow-up on that. Folks in Garner have, in the past, some of the past transit plans, seen some rail options, commuter rail in particular, that's come through Garner with 2 stops, actually started in Garner and come through and gone west toward RTP. Any reflections about that?
Well, you know, I had the good fortune of being able to ride the corridor between the RTP and Garner. It was called a high rail tour, so we got a vehicle that Norfolk Southern actually ran, got up on the rails, and along with Commissioners Sullivan and Hutchinson, we did a tour. And so you would think that you could do that pretty quickly. What's real interesting is it took 2.5, 3 hours to do it, because there's a lot of traffic on those rails. There are a lot of freight trains, there are Amtrak trains, there is construction work. There are parts of the corridor that are very, very constrained, especially when you're going through North Carolina State University. So there are lots of challenges there, but it is a corridor that runs from one place to another place, like Garner, and maybe even in the future, other places that could really well serve this community. So it is an important aspect of something for our future to take a look at.
Okay, great, thank you. Chris, your organization, as you told us, represents all of the towns and cities in Wake County and then some regional partners. Could you tell us what you're hearing from some of the other towns and some of the larger cities in Wake County about transit planning?
Well, I think it's obvious all of the communities in Wake County are very interested in this topic, and all of the municipal governments are engaged in the process. I think we're also hearing interest from some of our member agencies like Johnston County, in particular the town of Clayton, the city of Creedmoor up in Granville County, and the town of Anger in Harnett County, which you don't really think about. And I'd like to think that they probably have a very healthy expectation of how they might plug into all this. They think a van pool, a van that comes and goes in the morning and the afternoon up towards Wake County or an RTP would be a great thing. And they're all very interested in what's going to happen here. Our partners to the west, there is a similar metropolitan planning organization on the western side of the triangle called the DCHC MPO, Durham, Chapel Hill, Carborough MPO. In some respects, they're a little bit ahead of us. They have 2 counties that have implemented a sales tax and are well underway with bus improvements and a light rail project. I think that they are very interested in what we're doing, but are kind of right now sort of taking a wait and see approach until we get a little further along in our process.
That's great. Actually, Go Triangle could operate that van pool today. So as I turn to John, John, could you tell us about the regional connections that Go Triangle makes and how we help some of the small towns that don't have their own transit agencies?
Sure. Yeah, I mentioned the service that runs between Garner and downtown Raleigh. We run similar commuter hour services from Eastern Wake, Zebulon, Wendell into downtown Raleigh, from Knightdale, from Fuquay-Varina, from Wake Forest. And the way we go about this is to engage the local government and talk to them and talk to their leadership about where's the right place to stop, where's the right place to locate a park and ride, what's the right level of service to have. The first experience we had with this was up in Wake Forest, and they were interested in putting local town funds, property tax funds, into a circulator because a grocery store had moved from the center of town out to the edge of Wake Forest, and they were having a lot of neighbors and seniors who were having trouble getting there. And so what we were able to do is bring our transit planning expertise and operations expertise to help them plan and think about that service. It's their service. They made the decision to spend money on it. And then we worked with the city of Raleigh to end up operating it. And so this is a model that we do differently in different communities depending upon what the needs are. But the important part of it is getting that local input, making sure that we understand what the different towns' desires are, and working through the process with them.
Okay.
I guess I should also mention, because of the Andrew, we run a van pool service as well, and a van pool is a leased vehicle, so they're 7 to 12 passenger vehicles. Someone takes on the responsibility to be the driver and the collector of the funds, and we lease the vehicle and cover the insurance and the fuel, and we've got 68 of those in operation. A lot of them come in downtown Raleigh from places like Andrew, as far away as Goldsboro and Fayetteville. Some of them are crossing the Triangle County lines. And that's good for a group of people that are going to either the same employer or employers that are in the vicinity of each other.
Joe, my question for you involved a little bit of the synchronized streets and 540, so I'm going to add a question on the airport for you.
Sure.
And could you tell us a little bit about what new services might come to the airport and how we can better connect the airport to our businesses and to Wake County?
Sure. Well, again, as I mentioned, the airport is essential to our market's success. Each service that we get in many ways feeds on the other. So for example, earlier this year we had an announcement for a new service on Alaska Airlines to Seattle, and then just a few days ago we got the announcement of new nonstop service, or it's actually returning nonstop service to Salt Lake City. An important piece of those information is that we now have, and we will have once those final services start by March of next year, every major hub in America, there will be at least one flight a day from Raleigh-Durham Airport to. That wasn't the case before, but now we're going to have that. So when Deborah's asking about what other services can we expect to see, at this point, from a domestic standpoint, it's really going to be more frequency to the hubs, and then more frequency to other major destinations that may not be hub service, but are still really important to travelers here in Garner, Southern Wake County, and throughout the entire market. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just domestic, it's the international service too. And so if you are interested in different places, you can certainly reach out to us since we focus on it. You can obviously reach out to the airport authority directly. They are on Twitter. There are different board members. One of the board members is speaking later on today in this very conference, Adrian Cole, and you can offer your thoughts there too.
Great. Well, we've told you how you can weigh in on the transit plan at waketransit.com, but Neil, how many minutes do we have for any comments from the audience? Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the transit planning process or transit in general in this area? No questions?
Okay. I'd say thank you, Deborah and transit team. Could you guys give them a standing ovation? Everybody stand up.